Gearing in World of Warcraft has always been a hotly debated subject within the World of Warcraft community and within the dev team itself, always trying to find this right balance between RNG and deterministic gearing. Over the course of expansions, we have gone from being more deterministic to more RNG to back to being more deterministic and back and forth again and again. And I think, finally, after, 25 years? Blizzard has finally cracked the code. I think they finally made a system that can actually genuinely solve this problem and has found the perfect balance between RNG and deterministic loot. Before we get to that system, however, I think it's important to acknowledge the pros and cons of both RNG and deterministic gearing. If we're looking on the side of everything going complete RNG, it kind of sucks because if your goals aren't realistically achievable, if there's no way you're going to reach Abyss by the end of the season, then that goal really isn't worth reaching for. If the only way you can get something is by getting it out of the vault and it's just not going to drop for you, well then, hey, what's the point? Why show up? Why keep grinding? If you've already cleared the content that you're going to do, if you've gotten the achievements you want to achieve, you might as well dip. There's nothing satisfying about failing to get the item you want from the vault every single week. It's just kind of more depressing than anything. But on the flip side of that, if you go the full deterministic route, sure, you feel like you can achieve your goals reliably, but the excitement and the thrill of achieving your goals is completely gone. I think all of us can look back on that one item that we really wanted from a boss, and we just tried farming it over and over and over again, and it just wouldn't fucking drop. But then once it did, that moment of just like, oh hell yeah, I finally got it. And then you valued that item for the rest of the season. You absolutely adored that thing. So while yeah, it was RNG and it was kind of bullshit in that regard, it gave some really high highs, and just taking that away and flattening the whole thing out to be completely deterministic would be kind of boring. Now, I'll fully admit, I'm the type of person that just really doesn't care about this type of thing. If you were to give me a fully kitted out character and say, go do the raids, I would be a happy camper. I'm here for the content. I don't really care about gear and all that stuff. But I fully recognize that the vast majority of the community wants to have this gearing up process be a satisfying thing in its own right. So the game shouldn't be designed for me in that regard. But the current system actually has done a really good job of striking a balance between deterministic and RNG. We had gone full RNG in the era of like Legion with Titanforging and all this jazz where you could never actually achieve best in slot because something could always Titanforge up to be just that one little bit higher. And there was sort of a pushback against this, which led us back around to sort of where we are with Dragonflight, where we get the deterministic upgrade paths for gear and all this sort of stuff. We get the Great Vault rather than the Mythic Plus box, where the Mythic Plus box would just give you one item per week, and that was it. Whereas the Great Vault gives you an assortment of different items. You can get 3 from Raid, 3 from Dungeon. Used to be 3 PvP, now it's 3 Open World. But you basically get this whole suite of gear to choose from, and you can do whatever you want with it. Obviously, you're still fighting RNG, but your odds are significantly better than back in Legion and BFA when you only got one item out of the box. So we've moved more towards this middle ground, and we're definitely in a better place than we used to be. However, it's still not perfect, because if you want a myth track item out of one of the dungeons, like, say, I don't know, Algathar Puzzle Box, maybe? Anyone? Basically everyone this season? If you want that, good luck. No, really, that's all there is to it. Good luck, because if it doesn't show up in your vault, too bad, you're not getting it. Until now, until this new system. But this whole thing has worked really well, and I actually think this has been a huge improvement over where we have been. But the RNG tied to the late game gearing has just been quite the demotivator, keeping me, and I'm sure other people, from wanting to go all the way to get full Abyss, all that sort of stuff, because it just doesn't feel achievable. After you get your hero track stuff, it feels like there's nothing you personally can do to work towards that goal. It's just whether the game is going to give you the item or not, and you have no control over it. It kind of sucks. So the reroll token, the Nebulous Voidcore as it is called, that Blizzard introduced this season, is something different. It's something we haven't seen before. It's called a reroll token. I'm going to call it a reroll token for the rest of this video, but it doesn't function the same way the reroll tokens back from MoP did. This does something different. Rather than just giving you a chance at loot, it guarantees that you will get an item already, or significantly better. Oh my god, I hated getting like artifact power or gold from those other reroll tokens. That was always depressing. So it's nice that it guarantees an item. But the really big thing here is that it checks off the item you get from the boss's loot table. Which means if you roll again on it next week, if there were 3 items initially, now there's only 2 items. And if you don't get the item you want that week, then there's only 1 item left. and it's the item you want. So guaranteed after 3 rolls on a boss that has 3 pieces of loot, you will get the item you want. No RNG about it. It will happen. Now this is great for a few reasons that we're going to talk about, but the thing that I think is really brilliant about this system is that it perfectly marries deterministic and RNG gearing. It gives you the best of both worlds. When I went into my Algathar Academy plus 10 or whatever, and I rolled my Mythic Algathar box on my first try, I was fucking ecstatic. It was like the height of the RNG, hell yeah, I got it. But after that, when I started using my reroll tokens on Mythic Chimeras to try to get the Gaze Trinket, well, that didn't exactly go so well. I had to go through his entire loot pool, and it was the very last item I got. But I didn't feel as bad week to week going to Chimeras and rolling on him, because I knew I was getting closer every single time I pressed that reroll token. I was 1 week closer to getting the item. So rather than feeling like I was getting screwed by RNG, I felt like I was making progress towards my goal. And that is such a huge difference in terms of my motivation to actually keep showing up and keep doing the thing. It doesn't feel like the game's screwing me. If I get something early, hell yeah. The game's throwing me a bone, it's giving me some free shit, let's go. But it doesn't feel like RNG is holding me hostage, which is an amazing change. So basically it marries RNG and deterministic gearing to give you the best of both worlds. You still get the downsides of both a little bit. It's deterministic, so obviously the highs of the RNG aren't going to be as high, and the deterministic systems aren't fully determinate. You can't pick the item you want off of a vendor, so you can still get screwed by RNG, like getting my Gaze Trinket as the very last thing I got off of the Chimeras boss. But the important thing is that you get the highlights of both, and it feels like you are making progress the whole time. It doesn't feel like the game is wasting your time, because you're making progress towards a goal that you know you will achieve if you just stick with it. But that's not the only benefit of the system. One that ended up being a lot more prominent than I thought it was going to be is that the system actually gives you interesting choices to make throughout the season. So you obviously get a limited amount of reroll tokens, you can't just have infinite, so where you spend those kind of matters. And it can come down to some really interesting decision making. Do I spend my reroll token on this one boss that has this really good item that I really want, but it's in a loot pool of like 7 items? Or do I go for this other item that there's only 3 items in a loot pool, but if I get it, it's going to be a decent upgrade, it's going to be a big jump, but it's not going to be as huge, but I'm guaranteed to get it sooner. So you can either go for the deterministic path, go for the one that you're going to get in like 3 rolls, or you can go the RNG route and hope for the best. So you as a player get to make that choice. Throughout the season, I've been constantly comparing the loot tables of different bosses, seeing, ooh, okay, if I roll here, I'll get it in 3, if I roll here, I'll get it in 5, but there's a second item that I want here, so that's technically a better thing, because I could get both of those. Maybe you'll pass on an item in the vault, because you know you're likely to get it with the reroll token, or go reroll and then see what you get, and then come back and pick something from the vault based on what you rolled. There's a lot of interesting choices here, and a lot more planning that goes into this than, I'm going to do my 8 dungeons, I'm going to hope it shows up. It's just a far more interesting system to engage with from a player perspective, and I really like that, and I wasn't expecting it to be such a big consequence of this system. Those interesting choices and the sense of control that they bring has really increased my investment in my character this patch. I have cared more about my gear, simming to get the best options, and wanting to get those best items more this patch than years. I don't even know when the last time I was this invested in my character's gear was. This might actually be the most I've ever been invested in my character's gear, and it's because I specifically feel like I have control over it. On top of that, it serves as a great bad luck protection system for the vault. Previously, if you didn't get an item you wanted, you could pick the bad luck currency, and you could get like some sockets on some items and some other stuff, but like nothing was really exciting in that vendor. Nothing was like tempting and like, okay, I didn't get the item, but I did get this. It was a consolation prize in its truest form. You wanted the item, here, have a socket, there you go. Feel better? Not really. However, now with this system, you can spend those tokens to get extra reroll tokens. Now, that is fucking awesome, because what that means is, rather than saying, oh, I'm just going to take a consolation prize, you don't get the item you want from the vault, but you can get closer to getting the item you want. And on top of that, you're getting a guaranteed myth piece anyway, so maybe it won't be the one you want, who knows, but it could be something that's an upgrade, but either way, you're getting closer to that goal. Now look, the system isn't actually perfect, so we are going to talk about the negatives, but before I get there, I just want to make it clear, this system needs to stay and never go away, okay? Unless we have some major overhaul to gearing, this system needs to stay in place, because this is so freaking good. The way the gearing has been since Dragonflight has been really good, but this has made it so close to perfect. Like, it is so good, it feels great, and I'm very invested, and I wanna keep feeling that. So just, Blizzard, hey, if you're listening, carry it over. Copy, paste, just do that, okay? Thanks. I mean, it genuinely is crazy how much this one system has remedied so many of the issues with WoW gearing, and has made the sort of in-game chase goals actually feel worth chasing rather than RNG dependent and arbitrary and probably not worth it unless you're raiding Mythic really hardcore. It actually makes it worth chasing and makes it satisfying to do so. It's freaking awesome. If they throw this in the trash bin like half of the systems they've been doing lately, it would be a huge fucking mistake. And I will make another video and I will rant about how stupid it is that they threw it in the bin. Because this system, it's gotta stay. Or some iteration of it. Obviously things can change, but this system has gotta stay. Now, in all fairness, I'm not going to pretend like it's all perfect hunky-dory, so what are the negatives? One of the biggest ones is that the loot tables are super uneven, so depending where your best-in-slot items come from, you could be totally screwed. So if you're looking at, like, getting an item out of the Seat of the Triumvirate, if you only need one item from there, good fucking luck. Meanwhile, if you want to get something out of Nexus Point or Skyreach, you're dealing with a pretty moderate amount of them. It's, nothing crazy, but, hey, it's a decent loot table. The disparity there is kind of huge, and it just varies depending on the player's class and all that stuff and what they want. And this fully applies to raids as well. Some bosses might have 3 items that you could potentially loot, some might have 6. And that's a huge disparity in the number of reroll tokens you're going to need to spend. And that kind of sucks. And it also sucks because it's different depending on what spec you're playing. Like when I'm trying to get my Gaze Trinket off of Chimeras, I spec'd over to Elemental because it had less loot on the table than Enhancement. And that's kind of dumb. Like, that feels really bad if you're stuck as a spec that can't just do that, right? If you're a spec that it takes you 5 rolls to get an item, right? And then you look over at your friend who's after the same item and it only takes them 3 rolls, that just kind of feels unfair and kind of crappy. Obviously, it's something that they're never really going to be able to fully fix because you're never going to make the loot tables the same for every spec in the game. That would be an insane problem to try to solve for. But at the very least, the far ends of the spectrum need to come in and be squished in. So like the elemental loot table for Chimeras maybe needs to get bumped up some if we're going to keep the same average number of loot items. And Seat of the Triumvirate needs to delete like half of its loot pool in order to feel fair with the rest of them. So there is an imbalance there that does need to be addressed, especially in future seasons. But I don't think it's too big of a negative, especially given how strong the positive sides of the system are. Another big downside of this system is that there is a very strange interplay happening between Mythic Dungeons and Mythic Raid, where with Dungeons, all you have to do is do a +10, and bada bang bada boom, there you go, you got a Myth Track item, have fun. Whereas if you do a Raid on Heroic, you only get Heroic Track. You have to do it on Mythic, which is kind of shitty, because Heroic is way harder than 10s, like, significantly so. Not that Heroic's hard, but, like, it is, comparatively, 10s are a joke, dude. They're a total joke this season. So, getting Myth rewards from that, but not from Heroic, feels very, very strange. And this is obviously a bigger issue than just, this system. The disparity between Mythic Plus and Raid has been a long-standing topic of discussion, and how you balance infinite loot versus not infinite loot is always going to be a tough question to answer, and there are problems with, making Heroic just have Mythic loot gear. So the interplay between Mythic Plus and Raid, particularly Mythic Raid, really needs to be addressed because, man, it doesn't feel good right now, especially with how difficult he is. It's not great, but that's a different video. And the only other real negative to the system, and I say negative in quotation marks here, is that it speeds up your gearing. It makes gearing go way faster. Again, I don't think this is a bad thing. Obviously, you're going to have different people that have different opinions on when you should be able to get best in slot, if you should even be able to obtain it, all that sort of stuff. I think if you've been playing the season fairly consistently, you should be able to hit best in slot, I think, in like 2/3 of the way through a season. Again, I'm kind of biased here because I don't super care about gear, but I think it is nice to be able to be done with the season and be like, okay, cool, I got my best in slot. Hell yeah. I'll be back in like a month or 2 when the new season drops. I think that's a really good pace to be achievable if someone is playing the game really consistently. Instead of, if you want this, you need to be on the hamster wheel the entire time. I think it's nice, it would be nice that you can get it done and then just take a step off and be like, I'm gonna chill for a little bit. Okay, thanks guys. I think that's the best way to go about it, and I think this system is really close to that, actually. So obviously, you know, how many reroll tokens you get, when they get introduced, all that stuff can be tweaked, but I don't think it's speeding up gearing is in any way meaningfully a negative, and I think it's just kind of a thing that's happening with the game right now. Obviously, this season's easier, but that's probably going to be like the next video or something, so I won't go too deep into that now. But basically, I don't think it's a bad thing, and I think even if it was considered a bad thing, I think it's vastly outpaced by the positives this system brings. So the negatives aside, man, this system's freaking great. It addresses so many long-standing issues, and the negatives aren't really even that negative or that difficult to solve. Like, just tweak the loot tables. I guess the mythic raid versus mythic dungeon thing is harder to solve, but you know, that broader issue. So again, I think this system is freaking fantastic, and again, Blizzard, this better stay here. This has increased my enjoyment of this season. Honestly, despite me not loving the dungeons as much as some other seasons, despite Voidspire and all the other raids that we have this season not being my favorite raids, with a lot of dud fights that I just really don't find interesting, despite that, this has been one of the most enjoyable seasons for me, despite the fact that the content hasn't been my favorite content they've ever released, and I think a lot of that has to do with the systems that are underpinning gearing this time, and the reroll tokens are a huge part of that. And if it can elevate this season this much, imagine what it could do with like a Season 2 or Season 3 of War Within. Oh man, that would be so good. But like, again, this system needs to stick around. It needs to be iterated on and developed. This better not go in the trash bin, because this has solved World of Warcraft's biggest gearing issues in like one fell swoop. It is just so brilliant. It's genius. I love it. Blizzard, please, I'm begging you, just keep it around. That's all I ask. Alright guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, do all those things, join the Discord. Let me know what you think about it in the comment section. Have you been enjoying this system? Do you feel like you're gearing up too fast as a result of it? Does it strike that perfect balance between RNG and deterministic the same way it does for me? But yeah, just let me know, and I will see you all very soon. Alright, have a good one. Bye.